Good evening to you. So many apologies tonight. We are having technical issues. We're going to try and continue with this as our best and see what happens. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name's Claire Bidwell. I'm a human rights activist and primary school teacher living in Scotland and campaigning for Kashmiri's rights and for freedom. I'm with Mary every week. Good evening, Mary. Mary's from the USA, is a human rights activist and a political writer. How are you this week, Mary?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good, thank you. We were to be joined by Aftab Hussain, a campaigner in the UK. Unfortunately, has a meeting come up at the last minute and is unable to join us. Fez, however, is with us again this week. Good evening, Fez. Thank you for joining us. Fez is
Oh, thank you for
chairperson
having
of the
me.
Liberal Democrats. Oh, you're welcome. Liberal Democrats Friends of Kashmir chairperson and campaign organizer for JKLF in London. Thank you again. So this week we've seen yesterday, a couple of days ago, the horrific death of the head of the Indian Army. We're going to be discussing that, and we're also going to be discussing the antiquated laws in Indian occupied Kashmir and make the links there for how he was responsible in that. I'm going to be passing over this to Mary, and Mary's going to be discussing this with Fez and really getting under this and insight into this. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to put them up, and then we can share them and we will discuss those. Thank you. So Mary, over to you. Quite, as you put it, quite probably a distinctive act, a development in India and occupied Kashmir with what happened yesterday.
Yes, we want to talk about the laws by which India justifies the arrest of so many political prisoners, of journalists, human rights activists, protesters, stone pelters. There are several laws which derive from the British colonial period. We want to put what's going on in the context of those laws, and hopefully Faith will be able to explain to us what those laws, the character of those laws, and how India uses them. In many ways, Kashmir, India, and Israel have pioneered the propaganda around the so-called war on terror. Israel against Palestinians to suppress opposition to colonialism and occupation, and of course India to suppress opposition in Kashmir to colonialism and occupation. India has been doing anti-terrorist propaganda against Kashmir since at least the late 80s, when it claimed that the end of occupation in Afghanistan sent thousands of mujahideen and so-called jihadi fighters from Afghanistan into Kashmir to fight a terrorist battle against India, and that also Pakistan began sending Pakistani trained operatives as part of the guerrilla fight. We know that both Kashmiri and Palestinian youth experimented for a period of time with the political strategy of guerrilla warfare. And we also know that a very long time ago, both peoples rejected it as basically a dead end strategy that alienated the population and got many people killed. But I remember in 2016, Khurram Parvez had an interview where this is before the 2016 uprising began, where he pointed out that the actual number of operatives, guerrilla operatives in Kashmir, was less than 200 people, and which did not justify the presence of almost 1 million Indian troops to fight terrorism in Kashmir. And that was in 2016. So India uses several laws. It has 4 laws, which it uses 3 of them with particular venom against the Kashmiri freedom struggle. And Fayez, we were hoping that you could elaborate on the character of those laws for people who don't understand how they're used. One would be the Public Safety Act, which is what Karim Parvez was arrested under in 2016, and at least 20,000 people have been arrested for. The other is the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, under which Karim Parvez has now been arrested. And the third is the Armed Forces Special Forces Act, where the Indian Army can commit atrocities of all kinds with complete impunity, not only in Kashmir, but in other insurgent areas in India. So I wondered if you could go into those laws and distinguish how India uses them against the freedom movement in Kashmir and against activists.
Well, thank you for having me on the show again. And I think first I want to make a distinction. But as India, it is not India as per se, the people of India. The people of India don't know truth of what's going on. It is the milks and the politicians of India that I refer to. The three acts that you mentioned are draconian acts. They go against all sort of international law and balanced law. The first Public Safety Act, yes, sounds brilliant. Keep the public safe. It does nothing for public safety whatsoever. It is simply a disguise for military, not the military and for the police to do carte blanche as they feel and not to be held answerable. Give you an example. Imagine, and you know, education, people take education very seriously in Kashmir. And imagine a university student, a policeman can arrest you, hold you for 2 years without a charge. And remember, degree's 4 years. So imagine you've done 2 years, then 2 years, you're arrested for 2 years. You've lost all your career options. You have lost all your life. And it was quite often that this was used as a financial sort of blackmail by police and the military, where they would grab someone young from the street who was studying, and the parents would pay anything to have him released because they simply didn't want him to spend 2 years in prison for something he didn't do. Getting on to the special military special powers act, well, you know, they are special because they're the only one that that I know in the world that exist in that country and not in any other country. But what it basically means, the police, an armed officer can kill someone, can rape, can commit arson, can pillage, and he cannot be held responsible for those actions. What it means is they cannot be prosecuted by any civil court in India, therefore making above the law, the natural laws of India. And this is a very dangerous precedent because, what technically speaking, what you have then is martial law, somebody above law, and that's in all the sort of areas that is used in, from Punjab to Nagaland to Assam to Kashmir. The other distinction I want to make is important is the word insurgents and insurgents. Well, there is no insurgency in Kashmir. There never has been. Kashmir, you had two parts of Kashmir. What's called the independent part, Jammu Kashmir, and the occupied part, which was called Indian-controlled Kashmir before, or Indian administered Kashmir, whatever you like to call it. And the United Nations clearly states that a country which is occupied by force by another country can use force to gain back its independence. So therefore, there was people going from Azad Kashmir to the Indian side to help their comrades be free. And there's no hard, there's no truth. And there was people like myself that felt that, you know, I know this, Avery may not agree with me, but remember, I'm a pacifist. And I would propagate with Laura Avery and mention and say, look, when you kill an Indian soldier, you're basically killing someone's father, someone's son, someone's brother. And just killing one soldier or killing soldier is not really going to help the struggle because, A, there's a million soldiers. You can't kill 1 million soldiers, you know. So what we need to do is work in a political way where the international community to highlight the issue of Kashmir and move forward from there. And you know, Yasin Malik, who's now the in charge of JKLF, he agreed, and the JKLF put his arms down, and once JKLF put it down, most others agreed to put it down as well, because there was a major sort of force there. And, okay, militarily, the Indian Army has gained the upper hand, but I think, you cannot meet violence with violence, and you cannot sometimes meet reason with violence either, but you have to sort of try and raise above not come down to the level of what these people are. I mean, if someone calls their derogatory term, I don't say it back to them because I don't want to come down to their level. Then you was talking about the sort of and this Special Powers Act has had sort of many draconian acts. One was where the young man was tied to a jeep and driven through. And the general who did that, or the captain who did that, actually got a medal rather than be punished, because it goes against all international laws of normality and humanity. And I said, so there's all these sort of dubious practices that the Indian Army uses. There's the mass rape of Kune Pashpura, where a complete village. Now this is the interesting bit. This could not have been done unless somebody higher up had given permission for this, because the army went in, cordoned off the complete area, took all the men out of the village, and committed mass rape from girls of 9 to, I think the oldest lady was 86. Inquiry was held. What for? No one was ever prosecuted. No one was held responsible. How can it be that you could go into a village, pillage it, rape every female there against international norm, and not a single person is held responsible? So when India says hold requires inqilab, they don't hold any value. Sorry, they use to speak. Over to you.
Feminists played a particularly important role in exposing the role of rape as a weapon of war, not just in Kashmir, but around the world. They played a particularly important role. And now they too have been silenced under these draconian, repression that's going on now. Now they are no longer able to speak out even against the rape of women. So it's a...
No, they can't. And there's two ways that the military or the politicians do that. One way is to actually send a sort of a message of fear amongst journalists. And fear is that if you do anything, we will do to you. And the second is to actually pay them off. So some of them is the mainstream TV channels in India. A lot of them are paid very heavily with government contracts, government advertising. And so they don't actually want to upset the government because they don't want to lose their contracts. Then there's the sort of the sort of pressure that if you say any, they use anti treachery, what we call traitor, and this law in the West is very, very serious. Very few people get charged with that. But in India and in Kashmir, it's at a drop of a pin. If a reporter reports something that the military doesn't like, is charged with anti-sedition laws. Yes. And I is the class of traitor for speaking out. Now, journalists, what is a journalist's job? Journalist's job is to bear witness and to report. So what they're really saying is, don't bear witness, or we will arrest you. And also, they will not arrest and keep in prison in Kashmir. They will send them really far away to the other end of India, so they lose all contact with their family, and their family cannot see them. And these are all draconian, repressive laws and repressive practices. And the one about the using rape as a weapon, that's actually against international law, international norms. Now, how India is getting away with that is simply with armed contracts. India is now the third biggest importer of arms, and I think I've said that before, and it spends a staggering $72 billion. And don't forget, you've got Russia, you've got America, you've got China. India is third. So imagine how much it's sort of money it's sort of earning. Uh, so again, the West countries don't want to upset India because this, not that they like what's going on, not that they accept what's going on, not that that they agree with what's going on, but they accept what's going on simply to keep the military contracts and keep the military suppliers happy. And I think that's really disgraceful and disgusting. Really, we should put human life above everything.
A few years ago was that the ANI news agency in India, which is pretty much the spokesperson for the agency that speaks for the BJP party, they had formed a news consortium with Reuters. And so what they report, which is mostly propaganda and fake news, gets repeated, picked up by Reuters and circulated around the world. So that a lot of the news that you hear, you have to check what agency it comes from, including by Reuters, because it's not reliable. It very often comes straight out of the Modi regime. So it's very difficult to get accurate information. I wondered if you could talk about what you think of the number of political prisoners that have been jailed under the Public Safety Act and under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. How many? I remember reading a figure from 4 or 5 years ago where there were close to 17,000 arrested without any accountability. Kids picked up in the middle of the night. Protesters picked up off the street, no accountability under these acts, held for undetermined amounts of time, lost in the system. I wonder if you have any idea, any information about how many Kashmiri political prisoners there actually are.
Well, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to ascertain genuine information because the way the internet and everything's controlled. And then you talked about the sort of Reuters news agency. Well, India is, in the sense of what fake news channels come out, India is actually at number one now. It has the most news fake channels. So it's very difficult to ascertain any information, true information. But my idea is about 20 to 25,000 people have been arrested, and that's without any charge. They're not sort of found guilty of anything whatsoever. And they're allowed to do that simply because these draconian laws exist, and these laws do not do any favor to the natural law of justice, don't do any to show India as a country to live and work in. In a matter of fact, most countries now, I mean, at one point you talk about India, people say, yeah, brilliant country. You go outside now and ask people about India, and they'll say, yeah, it's polluted, it's dirty, it's violent, it's lawless, and it's draconian. The country has gone backwards. It's back to 90. If you look at the fact that the BJP Institute of RSS, and RSS was inspired by the Nazis of 1920s and 30s. In that sense, you could argue that the country's really gone back to 1920s and 30s, which is political thought. Economy-wise, it's lost trillions in economy, and it's gone back to sort of 1980s as well. So the country has gone back as sovereign. So it's not just the people of Kashmir that are suffering, it's people of India suffering as well. And there's two ways they're suffering. One is, you got to understand, how did the Nazis in Germany win? How did they convince the sophisticated, educated German people of Nazism? Propaganda, fake and live propaganda. And you have very similar situation here, where news channels are attacked. If they try and make any sort of news or report on any sort of balanced report, they're either brought off or attacked. And sometimes you're attacked by mob rule. Supporters of the BJP and RSS will actually go and attack a journalist and a reporter. It's mob rule in India. It's totally a lawless country now.
Was that apartheid?
Sorry, Mary, I can't hear you.
There. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Could you repeat that, please?
Yes. I found it interesting that apartheid South Africa also had a Public Safety Act, very similar to the Jammu Kashmir Public Safety Act, and for the same purposes, to completely repress opposition to apartheid. And so it's the affinities between apartheid, colonial repression, and German fascism are quite striking and disturbing.
I mean, it's amazing how India, at one hand, says, well, Kashmir is a part and parcel of India, but then treats the people as second-class citizens or third-class or not citizens at all. You know, so yes, it is using the tactics of apartheid. There's been cases where a government contract's gone out which affects Kashmir, and at the same time, the internet in Kashmir is actually being switched off. So any company in Kashmir couldn't apply for a contract that applies to Kashmir, but an Indian company could. So you can see the tactics, dirty tactics that they're using.
I see yesterday that the head of the Indian Army was killed in a helicopter crash.
Yeah,
And I'm
he
wondering,
was.
I remember that after the 2016 uprising, he was the chief architect of these almost daily, and sometimes 2 or 3 a day, cordon and search operations, very bloody operations, where the troops moved into a residential neighborhood with their bazookas and their high-powered rifles and pellet guns, and often razed family homes, killed livestock, terrorized the residents, shot at unarmed protesters with pellet guns, injured many people. And he was the chief architect of that. So I'm wondering if you could talk about his relationship to how the Public Safety Act and the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act were employed in Kashmir. If they became much worse under his tenure, or if in fact in more unbridled under his tenure, or if in fact it was a continuation of what had always been.
Uh, just for answer your question, just for people who don't know the background to this helicopter crash, do you mind if I just mentally do a brief? Yeah, the Defense Chief of Staff, VP Robert, was flying in a Russian-made M17 version 5 helicopter, military helicopter, and he was flying to a military training college in Wellington town, which was about 62 miles from the sort of distance. On board was General Rawat and his wife. What his wife was doing there, we don't know, and other military passengers and crew members, and that includes us. So there's about 13 people total. I understand the pilot has survived and he's very badly injured, but he has survived. But the interesting thing is what his wife was doing there. You know, it's you would never have, you know, a British or any other general, anyone like that, flying on a mission and decides, you know, I don't know. It's very difficult to say what he's doing there. And what the report is that the communication went down the helicopter for a few minutes before the helicopter actually crashed. Obviously, our thoughts are, you know, we are all human beings, and you know, our thoughts are with the family of the general and his friends, and you know, deeper condolences to him. In answering your question directly, yeah, I mean, General Rat was someone who had links to the BJP. He was very well close to the BJP, and he sort of whatever orders he was given by central government, he carried them out fully. One of his comments, which sort of ran across the globe with a chillingness, was that he said, "I will change the DNA of the people of Kashmir." I mean, that's a very chilling comment. What he meant by that, or what he could do, I don't know. As in regards to the laws that applied, you know, I mean, he fully applied the laws to whatever law there was extended. As you explained, you took full advantage of them. I spoke earlier on about the youth being tied to the front of the Jeep and drove through. He actually gave a medal to the captain, I believe it was, who instigated that, rather than totally responsible for this, what any with normality or sailors would call a barbaric act, tying someone in front of a car and driving, and it was shown all over the world what a draconian act was. Yes, he gave him an award and a medal for it. So really, the listener can ascertain what his thoughts were behind that, or what mindset type of person he was. But certainly, it went against, common decency, really, with the world.
So my last question is, what do you think? I know we have the banner on the screen: abolish the Public Safety Act, abolish the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, abolish the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. What do you think we can do within the context of defending Kashmiri political prisoners? What do you think we can do to actually affect change for the
Mary, the other things viewers might be interested to know, that the Indian soldiers, the other thing, think about this. How come you always hear suspected militant shot dead? You never hear suspected militant arrested. And the reason behind that is that Indian military soldier who kills a person is actually paid a bounty.
Mm.
That's another thing for us to remember. He's actually paid a bounty. He's actually paid extra money. You tell me in what part of the world, what part of the country a soldier gets a bonus for actually killing someone. That's mercenary work. It's ruthless work, and it's not something international should accept, and we should accept. We can work together. You said, what can we do? By people viewing this and by people praying this and by speaking out. If the people are not spoken at, you, Mary, would not know about it. You would not be interviewing me, and Claire would not be here interviewing me. So one of the strongest weapons we have is our voice, and our voice of reason is our strongest weapon.
Yes.
And then the Indian government realizes this. So what happens is, and I'm a victim of that, and I think Claire is as well, members of it. The Indian government Twitter actually sent me an email, I think I mentioned last week. They sent me an email saying, we've been asked by the Indian government not to transmit your Twitter messages to India. You have broken no rules of Twitter community, blah, blah, blah. So you can see what the people of, it's our voice, and that's what they're afraid of.
Yes.
I've worked in Parliament for many, many years with different parliamentarians. And one of the things is demonstration. They hate it when they see a demonstration outside the United Commission. How do we know that? Because that's when they complain the most to the police. And that's what my intelligence sort of tells me, that fast. If you demonstrate out there, they really hate it. Don't organize them. Don't organize demonstration. It's really painful for them. They don't like it. They complain so much. And I go, of course I will. And as you know, I'll go ahead and demonstrate it again, because that's the best way, is to voice your opinion. Social media is a great medium to get our voice across. And why are we, and my question has always been is, why are we not talking about this? Why are we not talking about Kashmir? Why are we not talking about the repressive laws that only exist in India and probably nowhere else in the world? The soldiers get raped, murdered, pillaged, and not be held. And it's actually, the law is used to protect him, not to hold him accountable, but to actually protect him. And that's what we need to get more across on the social media, Twitter and that. And why are we not talking about this? It's always been my question to people. And I especially say to people who have more followers, Twitter followers, social media followers, people who are celebrities. Why are we not talking about it? Don't forget, Rihanna spoke about the Indian farmers. And a lot of people believe that it's her one tweet that actually changed across the globe, got the message across, and people started talking about it, and the Indian government got afraid and knew that people are learning the truth about them. And actually then pull back from making the laws that would have basically enslaved farmers in their own farms and in their own lands. So what we need to do is keep our voice up, keep campaigning, and don't let them beat us, because what they're afraid of our pacifist movement and our voice going across the globe. People from color, creed, religion, class, speaking of one thing on Kashmir and asking, why are we not talking about this? Why is this allowed to go on?
Those are all the questions I had. Claire, do you have any?
No, that was very insightful, and I learned a lot hearing through all of that. So thank you. And Fez, yeah, our voices, everybody here listening.
Thank you, Fez.
Which is so true. And I mean, we had on Sunday the 5th. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on Sunday the 5th, our Solidarity Day, I mean, that went global. It was bigger and everything again, and our voices are out there, and it's a fantastic opportunity. And then look at us working across other sides of the globe. We had Australia with us last week with Lee, UK, America talking. A lots more people wanted to come on and share their opinions and examples. I mean, I think it really has brought to the fore. We've been talking about Colin Harvez and these draconian acts and what they've done. We've now seen the Indian Army officer. I mean, is always not conspiracy theories, but I always find it very strange, Indian high up generals, the helicopter they'd be flying in, everything they would be doing would be best checked, the best of everything and all that security. So sometimes I think, it'd be interesting to see the investigation into what's happened. If there's more behind the story that will unfold, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes over the next week.
If I could just add, believe it or not, with even being the third biggest importer of arms, spending $32 billion, the Indian Air Force is actually quite bad. It's very outdated, and I don't know where this 72 billion is going on, but it's not going on soldiers' food or even arms or proper checks. Somebody's making a lot of money.
Yes, of course.
Absolutely.
But they do have substantial.
Yeah, I mean, and tomorrow,
substantial new military contracts with Russia, the United States, with Israel. They will try to upgrade. The United States will try to upgrade.
Israel is the biggest supplier of arms to India. That's why they have such a close relationship. And it's strange because, as I've explained, Israel is a Jewish country, and yet it has the closest relationship. I would not say Israel per se people. I would say the government has made a relationship because it can make more money from selling arms. An arm only can only do one thing. It causes you death misery. It's not good for any purpose. Selling arms is no different than to selling crack or cocaine. It's selling death.
Yes.
And and that's why they have a close relationship. It's purely money, monetary value, nothing more.
I really do think, however, that this military relationship between Israel and India and the United States really makes imperative that we form a very active alliances with Palestinian groups. It would not weaken the struggle of Kashmiris or Palestinians or Rohingya or Uyghur. It would strengthen all of these struggles enormously, because there is a direct affinity. I remember Ron Zarni yesterday pointing out
all of us
very involved in
nobody's free in all of us. So I absolutely agree. We need to work for national justice across the globe against all communities, nations, creed, and even class. Don't forget a lot of class prejudice as well. I mean, I'm an Asian person, but if I was to pull up in a really tailor-made suit and a Porsche, the guy in some places, they will open the door and let me straight in. I could be white, be in jeans and trainers in a dirty car, and I wouldn't be allowed in. People forget that. There's so much class racism as well. And obviously there's class racism in India.
let me just put Mong Zarni.
Well, it's quite apt that it's
sorry. Mong Zarni pointed out that there's
we
a
have
very
terrible
close affinity. You can't hear me? You can't hear me? Okay. That's okay. Can you hear me now?
No, I can hear you. I think what's happening is, yeah, it's delayed.
Okay. Well, I'm finished.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show, really. Look forward to next time.
I mean, that is, it's a shame about these hitches. Tomorrow, so it's interesting that we've had this discussion tonight about bringing a movement together. Obviously, people will sometimes say, you know, what right do we have to discuss laws in other countries? But I think we know fine when they're violating, you know, the international rights of human beings, then it's everybody's business to be involved. It's incumbent on us all. And so perfect for us to discuss this tonight. Really good insight. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you so much, everybody else, for joining us tonight. If you have any questions or anything you'd like us to discuss or share, or any guests that you'd like to see on this show, then please do get in touch with us and do let us know, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much, Fez, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. No, you're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
And Mary, thank you for doing so well through all these technical, I don't know if it's signal issues or what it is, it's a shame, but hopefully people have managed.
We'll get the hang of it.
Well, I think I might be blameless this time. I don't know, I feel it's signal issues, but maybe. Okay, well, thank you so and have a good week. Yeah.
Good evening.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
The Let Kashmir Decide movement is bringing to you The Let Kashmir Decide movement is bringing to you a brand new show on JKTV where you will get the latest updates and analysis into the situation in Indian-occupied Kashmir.
Modi and the Indian government want the world to believe that all is well in Indian-occupied Kashmir, but that is decidedly not the case. Join us and different guests every Thursday for insight into the latest developments in the Kashmiri freedom struggle.